then they will respond. I think we can do 2 rounds of 6 questions in total. Any other question? Yes, madame, introduce yourself. We're getting to know each other.
Okay, merci. Moi, je m'appelle Marie-Grace Nizigama. Je viens du Burundi. Je travaille dans une association, une ONG locale. Et ma question est orientée vers le présentateur Mutabazi, donc, qui a parlé de l'historique des droits des femmes. Il a apprécié la ratification par des États au protocole de Maputo. Mais avant, dans les allocations qui ont été prononcées ici, on a dit qu'il y a eu des États qui ont ratifié avec une réserve. La réserve porte surtout sur la violation des droits de la femme à l'intégrité physique, comme des pratiques qu'il vient d'énoncer, la mutilation génitale et les pratiques culturelles. Moi, je voudrais demander, comment appréciez-vous cette réserve qui porte atteinte à l'intégrité physique de la femme, donc qui porte atteinte à ses droits physiques de la femme. Donc la femme est mutilée, elle est mariée forcément. Donc comment appréciez-vous cette ratification avec réserve? C'est ça ma question.
Thank you. Another question from this side? Yes, madam, over there, and then we'll take that one, and then that one, then we'll come to the second round. Yeah.
All right, so thank you very much for the insightful presentation with the examples. It was like really heartbreaking to hear about the story. So my question is that I'm from Madagascar, and our country does not have female genital mutilation like some countries in Africa. So my question is that how can we support the other countries that are facing this struggle? And yeah, that is my question. Thank you very much.
Could you introduce yourself?
I'm Nancy from Madagascar. Madagascar.
Madagascar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last one, and then we go to the panel.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. My name is Innocent Shabe from Uganda. And I want to thank the panelists for the wonderful stories they have shared with us and the presentations. I had a question going to Mr. Mutabazi about the issue of FGM. Yes, you have discussed it comprehensively, and indeed you have told us the effects through the story that the young girls go through. But I had thought that in the discussion you would also tell us, maybe share with us, some of the key strategies that we think we can employ to deal with this issue. Because it's a historical issue, it has been there, it has been discussed. I'll give you an example. In Uganda, actually around the East Africa, about 5 East African countries who have been working together to ensure that we address the issue. But I can say that we are failing, but we don't want to give up. Because the last time we had the interministerial meeting in Kampala, it was discussed and we found out that Kenya is the epicenter for FGM around the East African countries. Because the girls that are trying to run away from FGM, or those that want to cut, they run to Kenya from Tanzania. Those who want to cut in Uganda, because there is a very strong legal and policy framework in Uganda, they still run to Kenya. And because in Kenya, I don't know whether we have some colleagues from Kenya here, they can testify, but the legal and policy framework, I don't know how it's being implemented. So my question is, what do we do? In Uganda, it used to be done in open. People would celebrate it in open. But because of the strong legal and policy framework, people have gone into hiding. They no longer do it in open. And then they had a particular period of the year when they would practice the FGM. Now they have changed the style. They would do it in even years, but now, even in odd years, they continue to do the FGM. So the question is, what strategies can we employ? But as I conclude, when we discussed with the communities that practice FGM, what we found out was that they use it as a rite of passage into adulthood. And so we have tried to engage and see whether we can, suggest for them alternative rites of passage. But for you as an outsider, you cannot easily do it. You need to engage the local communities to be able to do it. So, but if we have other strategies that we can employ, I would be grateful to receive them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll ask the panelists to respond, and then we'll go to a second round. I've already seen 3 hands. I'll start with those 3 hands. One, fourth? Okay, you'll be the fourth. Okay.
Most of the questions are addressed to Dr. Etienne, so I'm just going to respond to the first one.
Monsieur Shafi,
Yes.
you are the UN, and the UN has been dealing with these issues. Just give us a point of view of the UN on this matter.
So, okay. I mean, of course, in terms of hierarchy of right, as you pointed out, no. In fact, we don't talk about hierarchy, since all the rights are interrelated, interdependent, so they go along with one shoulder. We cannot separate one of them, no. For instance, when you talk about the third generation of right, without, a civil and political right, it's impossible to attain the economic, social, and cultural right, and then the group rights. They all go hand in hand. So that's it there, and then they go hand in hand. Okay, that's I want to distinguish at our level. No, so on the question of I think most of the questions have been around FGM. Our stand is to abolish this practice. As you say, it's based on advocacy that we are conducting around the world, that this law has been passed in most of the country, whereby the country have restrained the practice. That's why most of the practitioners went into hiding. The question how can combat that, and maybe on that we still need to continue. The commissioner is here, for instance, when we're working in Somalia, we want to involve traditional leaders, to involve them in terms of workshop, to explain to them the downside of it, the fact that, as it's an integrity. It is the violation of women's rights, women's body, to explain to this religious and traditional leader how bad it is for the society in general. So we were unable to hold that conference, but it's still on the table for the person who succeeded him. So we can only continue advocacy. That's what we can do, and involving all the main people who are concerned in this practice, including women and the religious leader. That's I think especially traditional practice. Those are the traditional leaders need to be involved, because those are the people who are behind this, because they want to hold the tradition. They don't want to give up. So how can we make them give up this tradition? It's a you and I need to work hand in hand, continue advocacy, strong advocacy. So in terms of how Madagascar can help, maybe Madagascar can partner with like country in Africa where the practice doesn't exist, and partner with civil society and conduct, work with us, UN and civil society and the national human institution, to continue to further the advocacy. I will stop there so that Professor or Doctor has something to say.
Thank you so much. Just to add, because you have spoken to it quite well, there's no issue of competition around rights. And my apologies because I did not retain your name. Maybe because the room is in majority women, I wrote down all the name of women, but it's not deliberate. Anyway, so there should not be any competition whatsoever if we were to bear in mind that human rights are indivisible. That's a principle, indivisible. And I highlighted many times, everyone, every person. So there's no need of competing. There's no need of competing, but argument, opinion can be shared, and everything that comes forward is appreciated. So, Madame Grasse, je vais répondre bien sûr en français. Bon après-midi. c'est ma sœur, je suis rwandais, ce sont nos voisins. En fait, les États ils sont souverains quand ils négocient, signent, ratifient ou font des conventions de traités partie de leur ordonnancement interne. Et donc, mais en phase de négociation, il y a les clauses où il n'est pas permis de faire des réservations. Et dans l'exemple que j'ai donné du Mali, par exemple, disons que le Mali a signé la convention sur les droits des femmes, et le protocole de Maputo, j'ai vérifié, il n'y avait pas de réservation. C'est-à-dire que le jugement auquel j'ai fait référence, qui a été délivré par la Cour africaine des droits de l'homme et des peuples, devait s'appliquer. Donc, ce qu'on appelle enforcement. Mais le problème que nous avons avec l'application même d'autres jugements délivrés par cette Cour, ce sont les États mêmes. Parce que j'ai compté, il y avait 5 États qui ont même retiré la déclaration en vertu de l'article 34.6 qui autorise les individus et les sociétés civiles de porter plainte ici, dont la Tanzanie. Dont la Tanzanie, je crois le Bénin, la Côte d'Ivoire, le Rwanda, qui encore oui, 4 ou 5 qui ont retiré cette déclaration. C'est-à-dire, vous dites, nous voulons les droits. Quand on commence à appliquer ces droits, vous vous retirez, vous dites, l'État est souverain. En fait, c'est ça le problème que nous avons en Afrique. Et ça ne concerne pas uniquement les droits des femmes, ça concerne tous les droits. En fait, peut-être Nyandouga, en tant qu'ancien commissaire, peut nous compléter. En fait, j'ai l'impression que les États africains, au moment de l'indépendance, c'était un combat de souveraineté, par après, quand il y avait le mouvement des droits de l'homme, à partir de 1948 au niveau des Nations Unies, ils ont dit aussi qu'il faut arrêter dans la foulée. Dans la foulée. Vous prenez un texte, vous ne considérez pas les réalités locales. Parce qu'avant, il y a certains États, pour rédiger une loi, ils font appel aux experts externes que d'aller dans les communautés de base pour dire, écoute, dans un village au Mali, nous allons introduire une loi de réforme du droit de la femme. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez? Pour en fait les corter les différentes idées à partir des communautés elles-mêmes. En fait, ça va même toucher un peu sur la on the question is by innocent. There's no specific strategy. In fact, if we can say there are things over which we have control. In this FGM, we can have control over it. It all depends on the energy, on the determination we put on it. But there are also other things beyond our control. You cannot tell me that those ladies I mentioned who hold a young girl to here, they can resist of doing it. You can, as a councillor in Uganda, in a district, call people and say, people, please don't do it again. Let's try. They will not stop the next day, but maybe next month a few will stop. And gradually we can achieve in our Agenda 2063. So, stage by stage. So, la sœur from Madagascar. Madagascar fait partie des 54 États africains. Et c'est un problème global. Ce que ça ne vous touche pas aujourd'hui, c'est bien, nous apprécions, mais on ne sait pas. On ne sait pas ce que deviendra. Alors, il faut peut-être apprendre, nous dire qu'est-ce que vous faites pour protéger les femmes contre les pratiques pénibles dont j'ai mentionné, dont le female genital mutilation, forced marriage. But again, if you were to look much closer, maybe some instances of kind of practice can happen one way or the other, but I am not in a better position to say what is happening in Madagascar, but we can share those kind of experience. So I think that I have touched on all the 4 questions.
Chef wants to have a bite.
Oui, c'est juste pour dire la représentante du Burundi que parce que tout dépend au niveau national ce que vous les femmes vous faites. Parce que votre contribution aussi est très très importante pour éviter que les États fassent ce genre de réserve. Ou bien si les réserves ont été faites, il vous appartient, vous les femmes, parce que vous avez aussi votre contribution à faire pour dialoguer avec les autorités pour qu'une telle réserve soit restaurée, bien qu'ils enlèvent les réserves, puisque ce sont vos droits. Et vous êtes des nationales. Vous leur dites, nous sommes les femmes et nous pensons que les réserves que vous avez émises lors de la ratification portent atteinte à nos droits. Je pense que la campagne doit continuer au niveau national. Merci.
Thank you. We had 4 questions. This speaker is not there, so I'll start with the lady. Introduce yourself, and then there was a hand here. I think it was you. You'll be second, and then we'll go to that lady before we pick maybe the last 2. I should say these are the last 2, 3, and then the last 2. The lady over there, and you'll be the last one. So after that, we finish this session. We'll go to the next one. Please, introduce yourself. But before you introduce yourself, I want... You see, this workshop, at the end of the 2.5, 3 days, we need to come out with a certain kind of statement. The question which was posed by the gentleman from Uganda, our friend from Uganda, had even talked about strategies. So if there's anyone who can even be making recommendations so that we start doing, because we could share experiences and then we end up with what then are we doing in the next 20 years. So I would also want you to be thinking about strategies for the next 20 years, and particularly how to engage the 11 states. This morning we had 44 are on board, 11 are not. So what will be our final decision, our final recommendation when it comes to the 11 states which are not parties? We also will have to make that recommendation. So you proceed.
Okay, thank you. I'm Dr. Maria from Kilimanjaro Christian Medical Center in Moshi, Tanzania. So my question goes to the second speaker. Do you think that it is possible for the legal system to work with the doctors, because most of the women with FGM, we receive them at the hospitals, and at the end they end up, I work in the obstetrics and gynecology department, so when they deliver they experience a lot of complications, but again after that we just treat them and send them home. There's no any legal system which is taken to those women who have been maltreated, or for them to the community in order to know if they are still practicing the same community or that FGM. I think if we work with the doctors, because they receive them at an older stage when they are giving birth and when they come with complication, I think we can forward them to the community and see what will, and take actions. Do you think that is possible? And another thing, just to add, our hospital currently doing reconstructive surgery in collaboration with one of the hospitals in Germany for these women who have FGM, so we can reconstruct back their parties and they can be like almost like the other normal women. I think when you come across them, maybe you can recommend for them to come to the hospitals if they want their parts to go back to normal. Thank you.
Thank you. My sister over there. It was on that side. We'll you will come to you at the end. We already done this round. Please.
Merci. Je suis Doumbia Fonta de la Côte d'Ivoire. Je suis la présidente de l'Organisation des femmes actives de Côte d'Ivoire. J'avais beaucoup de préoccupations, mais je pense que j'ai trouvé des réponses à certaines préoccupations. Et la question que je vais poser s'adresse un peu aux Nations Unies. Et on a dit que concernant les ratifications, par exemple, relatives aux différents instruments que vous avez élaborés, il y a des pays qui reprennent des réserves. Je suis d'accord. Maintenant, et ceux qui s'engagent en ratifiant et en harmonisant même ces instruments avec leur arsenal juridique. Et il se trouve que dans certains pays encore, le taux de mutilation génitale ou de mariage forcé est élevé. Tout à l'heure, vous allez parler de la souveraineté des États. Quand ça les arrange, ils vont brandir la souveraineté des États. Mais est-ce que là, à ce niveau, on ne peut pas faire quelque chose? Est-ce que les Nations Unies ne peuvent pas trouver un mécanisme pour amener ces États à appliquer ces lois? C'était ça ma préoccupation, parce que sur d'autres lieux, sur d'autres problèmes, les Nations Unies arrivent à mettre fin à certaines choses. Mais quand il s'agit de certains droits, surtout les droits des femmes, moi je vais parler des mutilations génitales autres, les pays qui ont déjà ratifié, je pense qu'ils peuvent user d'un certain pouvoir pour amener ces États à éradiquer ces phénomènes dans les États. C'est ce que je voulais dire. Je vous remercie.
Madame.
Hello. Okay, I'm Sabine Bazirutuabo. I'm from Burundi. I work with an NGO and we tackle issues on empowerment, women empowerment, and entrepreneurship. All right, actually I have a concern and a comment. And it's not out of topic, but I think we should think about it also. My concern is it goes as this. Actually, we are gathered here, we are talking of women's rights, equal rights, economic empowerment, making decision, education, and so on, as men and women. But actually here comes my issue, and it's a little bit paradoxal, because when as a woman, a mother, a sister, or whatever, who suffers and who has gone through those challenges, as a woman in authority, as a woman with various responsibilities, when as a woman, and I'm coaching, what in Cameroon, I grew up in Cameroon, what they call Institut National des Statistiques, says 47% of women, over 38% of men think it's normal for a husband or man to hit his wife. And I'm talking about women. Because we are tackling issues on how women can get to decision tables, how women can get to responsibility posts or whatever positions. But I am really bothered when I see women, and I can quote examples, but that's not the objective here. I remember a military official, superior officer in my country, Burundi, who tells others that no matter my position, I think without a man, you are nothing. So I'm wondering, I've attended one or two of such gatherings, and it's interesting. But how could such gatherings bring about a real, I'm talking of a real change of mentality? Because we are talking, and many of us here are women, but in actual fact, what message do we carry along? Because if I, as a woman in authority, I still continue carrying the message of like, you need a man by your side. Yes, it's good, it's not bad. But that you're nothing without a man, no. I mean, how can such conferences really bring about that kind of change of, I don't know if I should talk about change of mentality. I don't know what strategies could we really, I don't know, I'm bothered. I'm really bothered because statistics are not very good about these issues. We had a whole study about it. And then my comment will be on, like my Nigerian fellow brother. I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little bit blunt. We have a lot of laws, and I'm not tired of the laws, but we should be thinking of really how we could implement these laws. What strategies could we do to implement these laws? And that would be my comment to conclude. Because we have so many laws, we are tired of retaining them. Some of them we don't even retain. Some of them are even becoming contradictory, if I could say it that way, because they will tell you 18, and I went through another constitution and they told me 15. And
Summary?
Yeah, and actually that's my comment. I'm sorry, thank you so much.
We hear your frustration and we understand it. Yes. think I'll come to you during my last round. I want the lady, you both have glasses now. I want the one in the middle. No, you, yes. Yes, and then we'll go to the gentleman over there. You will be my last, oh, it's getting interesting. So it means I don't know how I'll close. But when I finish this round, I'll do the last three. So the last three, I want to identify you now. Madam, raise your hand, they see you all. Yes. And then the one over there. Ooh. We will have to make a decision. Yeah. I'll take yours, the lady over there, and then yours, and then I'll take one from this side, and then we'll close, because we have to go to another session. Yes, yes. These issues will recur. Yeah, we're not going to finish everything in this session. Retain your point, find an entry point where you can bring them in. So 2 on this side, and then I'll go on this side, we'll close. But now we're finishing with you, and then the gentleman, and then our host, Mr. Asa Mwambipile. Yeah, please, continuez.
Merci, j'interviens en français. Je suis Simone Assa Ako, avocat, membre de l'Association des femmes juristes de Côte d'Ivoire, qui a le statut d'observateur auprès de la Commission. Mais je suis ici au titre des avocats et défenseurs des droits des femmes. J'interviens en termes de suggestions, de propositions, puisque le modérateur a indiqué que nous devons nous projeter sur les 20 prochaines années de l'application du protocole. Je voudrais partager mon opinion que je tire de mon expérience dans la pratique du protocole de Maputo. J'ai une expérience d'utilisation du protocole aussi bien dans le cadre de mes activités associatives que dans le cadre de l'exercice de ma profession. Et je voudrais indiquer que la difficulté qui se pose sur le terrain dans la mise en œuvre, c'est comment faire valoir les droits qui sont issus du protocole de Maputo. La plupart des États qui ont ratifié le protocole ont domestiqué les dispositions, ont intégré, pour ce qui est en tout cas de mon pays, la Côte d'Ivoire, ont intégré les dispositions dans leur majorité au corpus législatif national. La difficulté que nous rencontrons, c'est la femme qui est victime, les femmes qui sont victimes de violences ou de violations des droits issus du protocole, comment elles les font valoir. Les organisations peuvent les accompagner, mais pour que la loi, les droits soient valorisés, il faut saisir le tribunal. Et c'est à ce niveau qu'il y a des difficultés pour ces femmes. J'ai relevé dans l'intervention de Madame la ministre des Affaires constitutionnelles et juridiques les exemples qu'elle a donnés sur la femme en Tanzanie, l'autonomisation. Si les femmes ne sont pas autonomisées à disposer de ressources pour faire valoir leurs droits et les faire respecter, l'application du protocole va se heurter à des difficultés, même si les États les intègrent dans leurs dispositions. Parce que la défense des droits, elle est individuelle, elle est personnelle. C'est la personne qui a subi la violation qui exerce ses droits. Et si elle n'a pas de ressources pour exercer ses droits, cela va être difficile. Je donne un exemple tiré toujours de la pratique. Les organisations de la société civile en Côte d'Ivoire souvent sont accompagnées par des partenaires dans le cadre de projets et programmes qui ont des durées limitées. Dans le cadre de ces programmes, vous connaissez des violences sexuelles, les femmes vont être sensibilisées, les victimes vont être sensibilisées, elles vont porter plainte. On va les encourager à porter plainte. Elles vont accepter de porter plainte. Les frais de justice vont être payés dans le projet. Les transports par le tribunal vont être payés dans le projet. Mais quand le projet prend fin, le programme s'arrête. Elles ne peuvent plus suivre ces procédures. Elles se retrouvent donc avec leurs droits violés sans pouvoir se défendre parce qu'elles n'ont pas les ressources. Voilà l'orientation que je veux donner pour que nous puissions réfléchir comment orienter les stratégies et les actions pour que les femmes soient d'abord autonomisées et qu'elles puissent avoir des ressources, qu'elles puissent elles-mêmes être dans la capacité de faire valoir leurs droits devant n'importe quelle juridiction, que ce soit nationale, sous-régionale ou internationale, parce qu'elles pourront payer les frais de justice, elles pourront être accompagnées par des avocats qu'elles pourront payer, même si un partenaire arrête son programme. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Madam. Our colleague over there, introduction.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Obed Darara from Mozambique. My contribution rather goes closer to what my contribution builds on what my sister just spoke about. I wanted to share some albeit still anecdotal, some promising practices that in Southern Africa have been coming out, especially when we saw some of the preliminary evaluation for Girls Not Brides and the Spotlight Initiative of how it's a sort of engagement at a multi-sectoral level, and then also engagement at community level, how you deal with some of these abuses and human rights violations. And some of the success factors that they mentioned, there was actually the sequencing as well of their interventions, and also attaching beneficiation, and I'll explain with an example, and also the commitment from the legal fraternity in terms of making it very punitive to perpetuate some of these human rights violations. And I'll give an example. I think it's coming out mostly in two areas, forced marriages or forced unions, and in natural resource management, with natural resource management committees. And so evaluations are showing that once the community itself benefits from the punishment that is exerted on a person that is violated a child or a woman. For example, with the child unions case, traditional leaders have been empowered, this is what the evaluation says, for them to actually charge a beast or some funds that then are regenerated or given back to that particular community. And that person, even if they go to jail and come back, their family are mandated they have to do a ceremony. It's like, I would say, it's a cleansing ceremony, which they are mandated to do, otherwise they are chased out of that particular community. But also, in addition, there's the punitive aspect. Any community leader that then is involved or that witnesses an exchange of goods or funds during the marriage or the exchange of the girl and the groom, I would say, is also part of that prosecution. So what it does, it becomes a barrier, or it stops them from benefiting from the actual marriage ceremony itself, but rather they become an onlooker because they want the benefit of that beast in the local traditional beer that they would. So some of these, it's still, like I said, it's still empirical, and there are preliminary findings from these global initiatives that were being implemented and have been functional, specifically in Mozambique and in Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Mr. Asa.
I just wanted to ask Shafi Bakari, on basically two issues. What is the UN doing in terms of behavior change? I'm seeing in Tanzania, for instance, in 1998, we enacted a Special Provision Act that criminalized FGM to criminalize FGM, and that process was associated with a lot of tightening and loopholes for people to practice the FGM, and therefore the practitioners retorted to now doing more harm to the young kids, because traditionally they were doing FGM for young girls between the age of 9 to 13. But this time they had to do for the totally very newborn, closer to newborn babies, which was, they can't express, they can't cry, and so it is becoming a big problem, and they are doing it in the hideout. It is very difficult to trace. On the second aspect, I just want also to hear from, in terms of what are new mechanisms being introduced within the market to tame this problem, because it is changing gears from, you know, open FGM to now a very difficult. In a place where Mr. Nyanduga comes from, they are very fond of doing. They are now doing like they are doing a social celebration, and so therefore you won't tell whether it's FGM or it's you know, a typical celebration normally in August, sometimes in September to August. And so it is becoming very difficult sometimes to know whether this is a social gathering or it is a practice being done. So just in terms of how you see it from other countries, what has been the experience, especially after us tightening the legal framework?
Panelists? Looks like people have so much confidence in the UN, eh?
Yeah, I mean,
as police.
Yes, I understand that. You know, when you talk about the UN, you think, okay, the UN has solution for all the problem. So first and foremost, let me say that we all in this room, we are part of the UN. You need to know that. So we need to we rely on you on the ground, you know, to help us achieve results. Because the UN can only recommend, can only share good practice, you know, from country to country, and it's up to you on the ground to make that best practice work in terms of, you know, stopping the FGM in your respective community. And what we also do is to work with the regional mechanism like the African Commission on Human Peace Rights in terms of FGM. We have developed what we call Addis Ababa roadmap, whereby the UN Special Rapporteur and special mechanism will work with the African Union special mechanism to conduct, you know, a country visit in terms of, for instance, the Madame Salanjai will go conduct country visit, like say in Tanzania, or in the community where this practice is known to be predominant, to sensitize the traditional leader, religious leader, and women on the downside of this kind of practice. So we can only do advocacy and meet with the authority, relevant authority, and a religious leader to explain. That's what we can do. We are not, as I say in previous training, we are not a gendarme. There's no sheriff, you know, to go after a member state or any authority to say, stop doing this or that. We can only dialogue. So my plea to you is here to do your part, to continue. It's a constant dialogue that you need to undertake. So that's, in general, that's to say. Now, in response to doctor, as to whether doctor should work with I say, let's say with us or community, I say yes. You can even spearhead the organization of doctor against FGM here in Tanzania. You should do that. If you have not done that, I will really recommend that you form this kind of organization, doctor, you know, against FGM, and you work with community to explain, as you say, you saw it for yourself, to sensitize community about how harmful it is for women, this kind of practice. That's what my recommendation to. So yes, the answer is yes. And so, and also you can talk about the reconstructive surgery that you do that for those who are for the victim. That's for the victim. So, but first and foremost, work with the traditional leader to stop this practice. They must, or to reduce it, to put it to coma, we say, because, you know, and also learn a research on how practitioners avoid I mean, hide to do that. You know, to do research so that you can combat that one too at all level. Okay. So, so that's what I was saying in general for the specific question posed by the madam from Côte d'Ivoire. The question was okay. It's a proposal. Okay. So I think the proposal is welcome, and what we do, that's what we do in general. So we need to work with you and help us, helping you. That's what I can say. Yeah, together. Okay.
Thank you very much, Shafi. Colleagues, I will not go for the last round for very technical reasons, because we should not be extending more than what the interpreters have allocated us. They do a lot of work with their thinking, so they have to come up to a limit. So I'll ask a doctor to respond, and then we'll be closing this session, which means we'll be closing this session. But I just wanted to point out that this was a foundational session. We'll be going into the detailed programs tomorrow and the day after. Many of these things will fit in there, so please bear with us.
In the interest of time, I think that there have been like 2 contributions from the gentleman over there from Zimbabwe, and even from the ma consul de la Côte d'Ivoire. Mais en ce qui concerne on the question, first one put by Maria, I think there are 2 issues here. The first one is a medical doctor who is entrusted with saving lives and who on a regular basis or consistently observe a certain phenomenon which we call like FGM. You will call, the moderator of the hall will call the work being done by a Nobel Peace Prize in African, Dr. Denis Mukwege. He's dealing with women abused as a result of armed conflict. And sometimes when there are some kind of similarities with this practice with the violence during armed conflict, I think really thinking about how to handle it in a coordinated and harmonized manner. So as a medical doctor, you observe a phenomenon, you can just go to see if that can be even dealt criminally speaking, because some of the practice are criminal. But yet we have this issue of culture, of social, in Mali, in the case I mentioned, there was a big protest from the population. The state was saying, no, the government will collapse if we do not put an end to it. So it's something that we need to look at stage by stage, not to create more harm than you think you are going to save. So that's what I can say in the interest of time. With respect to réservation, les réservations, conventions, on a parlé de ça. Et le principe sur lequel est basé les Nations Unies, c'est la souveraineté des États. Il n'y a rien qu'on puisse faire, mais je vous ai dit que dans certaines conventions et les traités, les réservations ne sont pas permises. Parce que si vous permettez la réservation, alors la convention n'a plus d'objet. Il faut voir et même faire une comparaison, parce qu'en Afrique, il y a certaines choses qu'un État peut faire et notre peut lui dire non, ça c'est pas vrai. Donc il faut considérer les réservations, quelle est la motivation de la réservation, et même progressivement voir comment lever la réservation, et ça s'est fait. Alors, sur la question au Burundi, écoute, beaucoup de sociétés, je suis le père de 3 filles, c'est-à-dire ma femme, moi et 3 filles. Elles me disent, patriarchy is not only the male domination, it can also be female domination. That's what I got from the practice of in Burundi. But again, la chose que tu as dit là, c'est très grave que on dit une femme ne peut pas survivre sans homme. Ça, c'est pas du tout vrai. Et elle est générale ou colonel. Il y a un officier supérieur de l'armée burundaise. Hein. Elle est féminin et elle est parmi les plus appréciées dans le corps des officiers. Donc, il faut qu'elle se sente fière du travail qu'elle fait pour la nation, pour tout le monde. Donc, ce genre de discours, c'est vraiment banni. Mais si ton mari te dit, sans toi, sans moi, tu ne peux pas survivre, il faut lui dire, OK, avant je vivais, et après je peux vivre. Donc, voilà. Donc, c'est la question aussi de l'avocate ivoirienne. Les affaires qu'on amène au tribunal, il faut voir. Parce que, je dis, les applications qui ont été faites ici à la Cour africaine des droits de l'homme et des peuples, il y en a beaucoup, et les juges là, ils font du bon travail. Mais on a un problème d'application. Les États n'appliquent pas les jugements de cette. Okay, at the national level, once again, it will require a lot of resources because I was at some stage working in this building as an assistant with the International Criminal Tribunals for Rwanda. And for one case, about 500,000 could go, or even more than 1 million for one case. So when we go even to our respective countries, it's extremely expensive to take a case to a court. But there are also other institutions like the legal aid schemes, the legal clinic, and many of the university, I'm sure at the University of Cocody, there might be a service that help people who can not pay by themselves. So those kind of practices can be thought of, and also association like the ones you mentioned that assist people in need. So, Bakali, the new mechanism to put an end to this issue where in somewhere like where my colleague to the left comes from is a celebration. Yes, it should be a celebration for everybody, not some celebrating while others are dying or are traumatized or bear that trauma for the remainder of their lives. So you need really to look at every single situation and even give privacy and confidence to a person here, the perspective not of the community, because it is not the community whose body has been interfered with. So I think I will just end by that. So thank you so much for listening, and also thank to the colleague for facilitating.
Thank you. A big round of applause for the panel. I wish to thank the panel on your behalf, and I wish to thank all of you. I also need to apologize to the round that I had promised, which I could not go to. But only one thing I wanted to mention here is that we have taken some points in terms of the strategies. For instance, there is a need of engaging traditional leaders and customary leaders. There's a need of encouraging states not to adopt or to adopt reservations when they are ratifying. Sabine and Asa about mindset change. I encourage, because most of us are civil society, use your space in your own countries to advocate more, but where it's not possible, use the legal fraternity through pro bono means, as just said, to institute cases. Some of these cases change mindsets. Some of these recommendations, I will not go into all of them because of time and for the sake of our colleagues in the booths. We are recording them and we'll be able to come up with them on Friday when you are reading the statement. If there's anything you think that you need to add to this, please, you can send it to us in writing. Thank you very much for your time and for your patience.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Sorry, we have come to an end of this session. Now we go for a new session and the final one for today. It's a panel discussion on the impact of conflicts and corruption on the rights of women in Africa. In the panel, the moderator for this session will be my sister Tike Mwambipile. Wherever you are, please. Tike Mwambipile. Hello, please come forward. She will be the moderator for this session. Tike Mwambipile, Madam Tike Mwambipile is the executive director of the Tanzania Women Lawyers Association. It's an organization based in Dar es Salaam. In the panel of presenters, we'll have a Women in Conflict, Article 10 and 11 by Madam Natasha Mayaka, is the minister in charge of rights of women and children. We will also have corruption and rights of women in Africa by Mrs. Charity Chimunya. Madam Chimunya is the executive secretary of the African Advisory Board on Corruption. It's an institution also, it's an African Union institution which is also within this enclave in the Kilimanjaro wing. They are in the 7th floor if someone would want to establish some contacts. But she's one of the most accessible young lady from Zambia, our sisters from Zambia. We'll also have Trafficking and Slavery, Article 4, by Professor Faith Lugazia. He's a university professor from the University of Iringa. This is the university I went to as well, so I'll be proud to see this gentleman. So she is the coordinator also of the Lutheran World Federation. So, yes, Madam Karibu sana. So, Madam Tike, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Women, oh yeah. Yeah, because when you are...
Madam Tike, apologies also for you calling you as she. So I apologize for that. No, I mentioned... Professor Faith, apologies that I mentioned you as a male rather than... oh, I'm so sorry. And I know you in person, so I'm so sorry. Apologies for that. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. And are we ready? So when you look at this panel, it is very interesting. We are all women, so expect a lot of, good things, because as we've been hearing from morning, we are celebrating women, we are celebrating Maputo Protocol, right? So the energy is very low, because when you are here, you sit. The energy is very low. Maybe we stand, eh? Yeah, I think we should stand, because this panel is going to talk a lot of issues which are very interesting. So I need all your brain and, so we have to stand. Please, 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 please. I know the energy is low, but please, please, please. Yeah. So in Tanzania, we have this thing of pasha, 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 pasha. You heard about it? For the new ones, we do this pasha, 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 pasha. So while you're doing that, use your energy. Pasha, 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 pasha. Pasha, pasha. Yeah? Yeah, because we are celebrating, and because we are celebrating, when I say choma, you do this because we are celebrating ourselves. Okay? Yeah, we are celebrating ourselves, the women, but we are also celebrating the men, actually, because we are depending on one another, right? So pasha, 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 choma. Okay, now we can sit.
Non, voilà, j'ai dit que moi, on a fait pacha, pacha, pacha. On se lève une seule fois, puis on va, pour nous là, c'est feu en main. Pour nous là, c'est feu.
Okay, we do how?
On fait comme ça.
Okay.
On va encore s'élever. On va encore s'élever. Merci beaucoup.
Okay.
Et puis maintenant, on va doucement. On chauffe, on chauffe, on chauffe, on chauffe, on chauffe. Au fur et à mesure que les hommes se lèvent, on chauffe, on chauffe, on chauffe, on chauffe, on chauffe, on augmente, on augmente, on augmente.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And now I see at least there's some energy here. And because I'm not going to be the one who is going to do a lot of talking, and because the fact that the time is not on our side, and I do know that I had my 10 minutes, but now I'm not going to do that. We're just going straight to the presentation, and then we are going to have only one round. Yeah? One round of questions. I'm going to take only 5. And please, when I give you the floor, please go straight to the point. And trust me, I am not going to be as diplomat as Tom, because he's a diplomat. I'm an activist. So I'll cut you off. So prepare yourself. Okay? We are running out of time. So let me take this opportunity. I'm not going to do any introduction, but let me take this opportunity to welcome Ms. Natasha Mayaka to talk to us about women in conflict. Please have the floor.
Je parlerai en français. Mesdames, Mesdemoiselles et Messieurs, à vos titres et qualités respectifs, bonjour. Hello. Je tenais à remercier les organisateurs de cet atelier sur les droits des femmes en Afrique pour m'avoir associé à la présente table ronde consacrée à l'impact des conflits armés et de la corruption sur les droits des femmes en Afrique. C'est dans ce cadre qu'il m'a été proposé, et je me le propose également, de vous entretenir sur les femmes dans les conflits. Dans la mesure où la République démocratique du Congo, d'où je viens, dont je suis originaire, est particulièrement à l'Est en situation de guerre depuis 3 décennies. Guerre impliquant également les femmes, dont les droits sont manifestement violés, comme le relève le rapport du projet Mapping. Mon propos sera axé sur la situation de la femme en République démocratique du Congo, vu que le sujet est tellement vaste. Depuis 1993, année du début de la guerre, il serait précisément question de mettre en exergue les atrocités dont cette dernière est victime en tant que sujet ne participant pas aux hostilités, ainsi que les perspectives de solutions envisageables dans le contexte où le droit humanitaire ainsi que le droit international des droits de l'homme sont manifestement violés par les parties au conflit. Mais avant tout, il serait intéressant de situer l'origine et l'évolution de la prise en compte des droits de la femme au niveau international et son extension au plan interne. Au niveau international, l'attention sera particulièrement portée sur les conventions de Genève, mais je mettrai un accent particulier sur la dimension interne de la prise en compte de ces droits, dans la mesure où les contributeurs qui ont précédé se sont largement étendus sur la dimension internationale de la protection de la femme en situation de conflit. Le temps étant limité, nous allons circonscrire. La République démocratique du Congo a ratifié le protocole de Maputo le 14 mars 2018. Elle a également ratifié les conventions de Genève ainsi que leurs protocoles additionnels. Elle s'est engagée d'en assurer la pleine application, mais malheureusement, ces lois sont violées. Ne faut-il pas rappeler que la Constitution congolaise, à l'instar de nombre des constitutions, consacre l'autorité des traités internationaux? C'est ce qui ressort de l'article 215 qui dispose: les traités et accords internationaux régulièrement conclus, dès leur publication, ont une autorité supérieure à celle des lois, sous réserve pour chaque traité ou accord de son application de l'autre partie. À cela s'ajoute le caractère non dérogeable des normes impératives du droit international conventionnel humanitaire, c'est-à-dire que les conditions de réciprocité évoquées à l'article 215 précité in fine ne trouvera pas à s'appliquer s'agissant des lois de l'humanité. La République démocratique du Congo est confrontée à des violences qui affectent les populations. Les conflits armés et les catastrophes naturelles continuent à provoquer des mouvements massifs des populations. Elle compte 5,2 millions de personnes déplacées, plusieurs personnes tuées lors des conflits armés, y compris les femmes, et aussi beaucoup de violences sexuelles, et basées sur le genre, donc la femme. Elle est donc confrontée à l'une des plus grandes crises humanitaires au monde, dans un contexte où les conflits armés, les violences ciblées contre les civils, les tensions intercommunautaires et politiques sont le lot quotidien de la population. Tous ces crimes de masse qui ont débuté à l'époque coloniale ont continué après la colonisation et émaillés par plusieurs rébellions dont chacune d'elles produisait des milliers de victimes et des survivants. Des groupes armés tels que le M23, le Codeco, Zaïre et autres à l'est de la République démocratique du Congo, pour la plupart financés et armés par certains pays limitrophes, déstabilisent le pays afin de pouvoir exploiter les richesses du pays comme le coltan et l'or, en toute impunité au vu et au su de la communauté internationale. Les femmes et les enfants, bien qu'étant les acteurs de ces différents conflits, sont les plus touchés par ces guerres, les violences sexuelles étant utilisées comme armes de guerre. Au niveau de Makobola, une trentaine de femmes ont été enterrées vivantes, laissant des enfants abandonnés à eux-mêmes. À Chisuku, les femmes ont subi des violences sexuelles. Dans certains coins à l'est du pays, l'on demande à des femmes de coucher avec leurs propres enfants, ou sont violées et tuées par 10 ou 20 personnes, parfois même devant leurs propres époux, qui ne peuvent même pas réagir, étant menacés par des armes à feu. Nous voyons des femmes enceintes qui sont violées par 10 ou 20 personnes. Toujours à l'Est, les femmes subissent des violences inimaginables. Avec les viols, beaucoup d'enfants naissent sans père. Et les femmes violées sont souvent abandonnées par le mari ou même la famille. Certaines connaissent des problèmes de santé, comme la fistule. D'autres ont des maladies sexuellement transmissibles. Certaines filles ont subi des violences sexuelles en introduisant dans leur appareil génital des bâtons, du sel, parfois du piment et des crocs de fusil pour détruire complètement ces femmes et les faire fuir des villages qui sont souvent très riches en minerais. Avec la guerre, il y a beaucoup de déplacés de guerre, dont la majorité sont les femmes et les enfants. Elles sont utilisées par des proxénètes dans les camps des réfugiés pour la prostitution, n'ayant pas les moyens de subsistance. La République démocratique du Congo, pour faire face au lourd héritage des violences dans les pays et offre des chances à un environnement pacifié et propice à la réconciliation nationale, a ratifié certains instruments internationaux et prévu plusieurs textes de loi pour protéger les femmes contre les violences sexuelles et basées sur le genre. Nous avons entre autres le statut de Rome de la Cour pénale internationale. Nous allons lire l'article 7, ratifié par la RDC. Nous avons la loi numéro 6/018 du 20 juillet 2006, modifiant et complétant le décret du 30 janvier 1940 portant code pénal congolais relatif aux infractions des violences sexuelles. Il prend en compte la protection des personnes vulnérables contre les violences sexuelles. Nous avons la loi numéro 22/065 du 26 décembre 2022, fixant les principes fondamentaux relatifs à la protection et à la réparation des victimes des violences sexuelles liées au conflit et des victimes des crimes contre la paix, la sécurité et l'humanité. Cette loi s'inscrit dans le cadre d'une justice transitionnelle et dote le pays d'un cadre normatif adapté pour fixer les principes fondamentaux relatifs à la protection et à la réparation des victimes des violences sexuelles liées au conflit et des victimes des crimes contre la paix et la sécurité de l'humanité. La stratégie nationale révisée de la lutte contre les violences basées sur le genre constitue désormais le seul cadre de référence en RDC pour réaliser toute action de prévention et de prise en charge des victimes et survivants des violences basées sur le genre. Elle vise à éliminer toute forme de violence faite à la femme en République démocratique du Congo et à définir le cadre de référence pour la prévention des crimes et la prise en charge des survivantes. La SNVGB révisée contient une nouvelle définition qui englobe tous les aspects de VBG. Pour mettre fin à ces violences et aux conflits armés, le chef de l'État a instruit le gouvernement lors de la 43e réunion du Conseil des ministres du 7 août 2020 de mettre en place des mécanismes de la justice transitionnelle avec ces 4 piliers qui sont la recherche de la vérité, la justice, les réparations et la garantie de non-répétition. Pour soulager les victimes des crimes graves perpétrés dans le pays, un établissement public dénommé Fonds national des réparations des victimes des violences sexuelles liées au conflit et des victimes des crimes des droits internationaux en sigle FONAREV. Mesdames, Messieurs, la RDC est un grand pays avec 9 voisins, une superficie de 2 millions de kilomètres carrés et plus de 100 millions d'habitants. L'insécurité dans ce pays a un impact négatif sur le développement interne, la stabilité du continent. D'où le soutien de la communauté internationale en vue de ramener la paix de ce pays afin d'assurer la paix en Afrique et le développement de ces continents. Car, dit-on, si la femme est en paix, le continent pourra mieux vivre. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, and I have nothing to add. So let me welcome the second presenter, Mrs. Charity Nchimunya, who is going to talk about corruption and the right of a woman in Africa.
Thank you very much, Moderator, for giving me the floor. And let me start also by thanking the organizers of this workshop for having invited the African Union Advisory Board Against Corruption to be able to present on the nexus between corruption and human rights. And I think the presentation ties in very well from what she has just said because you do note that corruption actually fuels conflict. So the more we combat corruption, we'll also be trying to avoid some of the conflicts on the continent. So our work actually as a board ensures that African countries put in place measures and actions to prevent corruption, both in the public sector as well as in the private sector. And I wanted to give a brief overview, but in the interest of time, I think I'll skip most of the parts. I'm going to send the presentation to the organizers, and they're going to share with you. But just as a small brief, the African Union Advisory Board Against Corruption is an organ of the African Union that has been formed out of Article 22 of the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption. I don't know how many of us here are aware of the convention. Let me see by show of hands how many of us know the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption. How many by show of hands? Wow, very few hands indeed, very, very few hands. And I think it just goes to show that perhaps as citizens of Africa, we don't pay much attention to the institution that is the African Union, our union, because you're all African and you belong to the African Union. So you need to pay particular attention to its institutions and ensure that they are doing what they are supposed to be doing. So this convention actually, it's also celebrating a milestone. It was adopted on 11th of July, 2003 in Mozambique, Maputo, together with the Maputo Protocol. So it is a self-reinforcing convention. And when you look at the convention, it makes a reference to respecting human rights in their entirety. It makes, it's concerned about the impact of corruption on the enjoyment of human rights. Because where corruption thrives, there can be no human rights. And we heard this morning, and I'll come a bit to that. So in terms of the board, like I have indicated, it's formed under Article 22 of the convention. And we have 11 board members who serve on a part-time basis. And they are elected by the Executive Council of the African Union, and they serve for a term of 2 years, that is renewable once. Most of them come from national anti-corruption agencies from across the continent. And from amongst themselves, they appoint a chairperson, a vice chairperson, and a rapporteur. And they only come to Arusha, where the secretariat is based, when they have sessions. They normally have like 4 sessions in a year, ordinary sessions as well as extraordinary sessions. So in terms of the principal mandate of the board, it's to promote and encourage adoption and application of anti-corruption measures on the continent. And we are also supposed to be developing methodologies for analyzing the nature and extent of corruption in Africa and to disseminate the same to other to the citizens. And then we also advise governments on how to deal with the scourge of corruption and related offenses in their respective jurisdiction. And we normally do this through what we call country review missions. To date, we have 48 countries that have ratified the convention, and 7 are yet to ratify it. We had wanted to attain universal ratification in 2018 when the African Union was running with the African Union theme of the year on corruption. But we were not able to do that. And again, this year we had hoped we can attain universal ratification as we look back at 20 years of the convention. I did indicate that we celebrated 20 years this year in July, and we are going through the year. And hopefully, since we still have about 2.5 months to the close of the year, hope some member states can ratify the convention. so that we have universal ratification. Now, when you look at the convention, I have a small copy here for those of you that are not familiar with it. And from the preamble right up to Article 22, the convention makes reference to issues of human rights. It implores, it's concerned about the effects of corruption on the enjoyment of human rights. It's concerned about the devastating effects of corruption on the masses on the African continent. And when you look at Africa, it's one of the richest continents that you can ever think of. We have everything. We have the water, we have the minerals, we have the land. The weather is good, it supports doing a lot of things. But when you look at the vast majority of people, they live in abject poverty. And most of that poverty is as a result of corruption. So what we are saying is, as a board, we contribute to the enjoyment of human rights when we fight corruption, because corruption by its very nature, it impends development, it hampers developmental efforts and projects. Where governments have set aside money to build schools and all that, to build roads, other infrastructure, sometimes corrupt government officials come and take away from that. So corruption actually runs counter to the enjoyment of human rights in their vast array. Whatever rights you can think of, corruption does tamper with the enjoyment of human rights. And so what we are saying is that the more we counter corruption, the more we are contributing to the promotion and protection of human rights. Like I've indicated, the convention is actually calls for the respect of human rights. It is emphasized in the preamble, in keeping with the African Charter, and it is also concerned about the negative effects of corruption and impunity on the political, economic, social, and cultural stability of African states. I indicated that corruption actually fuels, sometimes it causes conflict, it fuels conflict, and in cases of conflict, like we've heard, women bear the most brunt of the conflict. And when you look at the convention again, it goes further to call for the board, the African Union Advisory Board Against Corruption, to form partnerships with the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. It's there in the convention. It's also, the charter also calls for corruption to be dealt with if people are going to enjoy their human rights. So in terms of corruption and its impact on the rights of women, I think my work is being made easier this morning. The minister did allude to some of the effects of corruption earlier this morning when she addressed us. And you find that though corruption affects both men and women, women suffer the most impact of corruption. And this is mainly due to the already existing gender inequalities, where women in many settings are exposed to corruption and its consequences. Women are the primary caregivers in most households. So if there's corruption, for instance, in the education system, it is the women who suffer the brunt. When they go to look for a school place for their child, a grandchild, a nephew, a niece, they are asked to pay a bribe. And because they don't have the means, sometimes it's an extra burden on them. And sometimes it's not just a bribe in terms of money and all that. Sometimes women are expected to offer their bodies to be able to acquire certain services. Even when it comes to the hospital setup, when seeking medical attention, medical services, either for themselves or for those under their care, we see that women are affected negatively. When you look at the percentage, I think that in terms of women who are heading households, who are the primary caregivers, you find that women are more compared to to our men folk. So you find that actually even in terms of the impact, it's more on them because they are at the forefront of seeking these public services. When it comes to seeking certain documents, national identity documents, perhaps land rights documents and all that, again, women, they suffer more. When the system is inefficient, women suffer more, and they're actually asked to pay a bribe, either in monetary terms or in kind, to be able to access the service. So you note that the more we fight corruption, we put in place measures and mechanisms to combat corruption, to ensure that public services are given at the right time without expecting extra to be paid. We are in essence contributing to the enjoyment of human rights. And as women are actually faced with these instances where they're asked to pay bribes, the more we fight corruption, the more we contribute to their enjoyment of the human rights and ultimately to the many rights under the Maputo Protocol. When you look at most of the rights under the different articles and the different rights, as long as corruption is allowed to thrive, corruption is allowed to be part and parcel of the public service, then it means those rights will never be enjoyed, they will never be attained, and it's a tall order. So I think the call that I'm making this afternoon, in the interest of time, is that let's ensure that we work together, all of us, because fighting corruption is not for one institution, but let's work together to build networks, to build partnerships, to be able to ensure that the convention is implemented effectively. For those that have not ratified the convention, they should be able to ratify. And also when it comes to the protocol, Maputo Protocol, likewise, member states, the 11 that you had that are yet to ratify the convention, they need to be able to do so. And by that, we find that as we work together to implement these self-reinforcing treaties, charters, whether it be at the level of the African Union or at the level of the UN, you find that we'll be making the world and Africa a better place where there's respect, full respect for human rights, especially women's rights. And then as a board, we are keen to work with all of you to ensure that corruption is fought and thereby contributing to the promotion and protection of human rights and especially women's rights. I want to thank you. I've seen that the moderator has sent me a note. Like I indicated earlier, I will be able to share the presentation with the organizers, and then you can read the presentation in detail. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Charity. Now to you, Professor Faith Lugazia. Please take us through the trafficking and slavery. We are eagerly to hear from the professor. Karibu sana.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like others, I really thank the organizers of this workshop, and I do thank them because it is a workshop which is mixing both men and women. And to me, I always believe that in order to bring any changes in the society, especially the changes we envision for the women, it must include men. That we sit together, we wrestle together, discuss together, and at the end, we come somewhere where we want to reach. So I'm really thankful and appreciating this, the organizers of this workshop. One thing I want to put clear before you is that it is written that I'm a coordinator in the LWF. And you know, LWF is the big organization in the world. I am not coordinator for that. I was working as preparing one of the study guide, coordinating. Subtitle G, which is about human trafficking and slavery. My title is Mitigating Women Trafficking for the Healthy Societies in East Africa, the Role of the Faith-Based Institutions. I use the faith-based institutions, and especially to Tanzania, whereby Christian and Muslim or Islamic faith are the major religions. In my presentation, I started with this definition because you see gender-based violence, corruption, women oppression, and women rights, and all this bringing a bit confusion with regard what is really human trafficking. I give this definition, which in fact I got from the United Nations Office of Drug and Crimes, of the Protocol to Prevent, Suppress, and Punish Human Trafficking, which says that the human trafficking is the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by means of the threat, or uses the force, or other forms of coercion, of abduction, of fraud, of deception, of the abuse of power, or of a position of vulnerability, or of the giving or receiving of payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control over another person for the purpose of exploitation. So human trafficking does not necessarily involve the movement of a person from one place to another, but the practices has multiple phases. However, when trafficking involves a movement from one place to another, the victims of the trafficking are not allowed to move from the place of their destination. And this is where I will really confine myself in this presentation with the women who are trafficked and are required to confine themselves in a one place. So in summary, I can say that it is suffice then to summarize is that human trafficking is a serious breach of human rights, and especially of women and children. My aim of writing this is that I want us who are listening to wrestle together and by asking these questions, what is the reality on the ground in East Africa on women trafficking? And what are the factors which contributing to women trafficking known, which are the factors contributing to women trafficking? And I know, or we know that there are many, but I will share on poverty and religious or superstitious beliefs. I know there are also social and economic and spiritual effects of this human trafficking business. then I will say what should be the role of faith-based institutions for healthy society in East Africa. And in this presentation, the argument is that if faith-based organizations keep discreet on these dehumanizing and diabolical practices, faith-based organization then denies her call of liberating God's people, hence stands to be judged as unfaithful servants. This is my argument, but also the Holy Scriptures also are supporting this argument. For instance, in the saying from the Hadith in the Islam, Muhammad said, those who cheat are not part of the true followers of the truth. And in Christian, the Bible says, God requires human creation to do justice. So this is not only the issue of the government, but the faith-based organization are called also to work. So with regard to what is on the ground, I took the report of the 2016 July from the United Nations, and it was saying that in these East African countries, Kenya has what they call Counter Trafficking in Person Act of 2010. And for this, trafficking in person, Kenya and Uganda are in Tier 2, to mean that governments do not fully meet the Trafficking and Violence Protection Act of 2000 minimum standards, but are making significant efforts to meet those standards. When it comes to Rwanda and Tanzania, they are on the Tier 2, but watching list they were, because they are making significant efforts to meet those standards, and the absolute number of victims of severe forms of trafficking is very significant, or is significantly increasing. Burundi and Sudan, they have been classified under Tier 3, to mean that their governments do not fully meet the minimum standards and are not making significant efforts to do so. So that was 2016, but today, as we have heard from our minister and other people who have shared, today in Tanzania we have moved from the watch list to Tier 2 because the government has increased the efforts by identifying more trafficking victims, increasing funding for the anti-trafficking secretariats, cooperation with foreign law enforcement officials on trafficking investigation. Adding to that, different measures are taken due to different phases of human trafficking, as we will see briefly on the cases of albino trafficking in Tanzania. And also, the salary have been increased to house helpers. In Rwanda, in 2017, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of the Gender and Family, Nadine Gatsinzi Umutoni, documented a bill to the government of Rwanda giving a life sentence to the traffickers who will traffic more than one person, repeaters of the offense, and those trafficking pregnant women and children. According to Umutoni, we wanted to send a strong message that human beings are not commodities, and that whoever thinks otherwise must pay heavily. End of quote. So we see a bit on those countries which I have mentioned. I know and respect that East Africa has got many countries than those, but I just went there and to look what is happening. And as the definition goes on, this human trafficking, especially for the people who went outside the place, they really suffer there, because they are given task which is beyond their capacity, but also this sexual not sexual harassment, but sexual industries, and they are going to work in different places, and we will see why they do so. Yeah, so for the faith-based institutions, there is a lot of things which have been done since the Maputo Protocol, especially of 2003. I have mentioned 5 things which have been done by the faith-based organization. First is advocacy for mitigating human trafficking at all levels. Second is documenting policies against the abusing of women and gender justice policy. Example, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Tanzania have put into place the gender justice policy and now is working for its implementation. Third is collaborating with mission organizations all over Europe and North America to work in order to mitigate gender-based, in order to mitigate human trafficking. And also the faith institutions have started projects to single mothers, and some single mothers go back to school today. Also, as institution, they have started to teach, or we have started to teach theology of gender justice and inclusivity. Inclusivity, to include others. Okay, and also working collaboratively with Muslims and Christians for the matters affecting women in communities, and working for way forward with guiding policies. Not only that, but also they have worked what we call ecumenically for the seminars, workshop, and other kind of teachings. Yes, as I said, the factors which are contributing or which are still challenging to the work which is going on, some of them is socio-economic programs which can help these people to move. Yes, how many minutes? Oh, thank you very much. Yes, I will end with 2 more points with regard to these challenges that in faith-based organizations we encounter the misleading and misguiding teachings from within ourselves. For instance, in Islamic it says that you should marry 4 wives. We hear all those stories about marrying 4 wives. But when it comes to the teachings of the Islam, what it says that you are supposed to marry 1 wife. If ever you want the second one, you must make sure that you are able to provide everything exactly the same like the first one. And that's why you find many people who understand Islamic faith, they have 1 wife. But also in our churches, we have these ideas of thinking that probably to going outside, that's where you are becoming blessed or you are becoming rich. There are many groups whereby there are prayers for the people wanting to go to America and everywhere. And the problem with faith-based institutions is that we really don't know the issue of what is happening when we hear that our brothers, our sisters are going outside. There is a lot which is happening there with regard to trafficking, but we don't know. So I call upon the churches and all faith-based organizations to really collaborate with the government, not only to feel that people are blessed to go outside, but also to work for trying to help them not to do that. And second, to have the teachings which are really helping the people not to feel that they can go and enjoy. Instead, the teaching which you can help them, that there is some things which you can meet there. So please, just think of how you can sit at your place and look for life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and please, my apologies for that.
Thank you.
Because we are not supposed to go beyond 18:30. So we have like 14 minutes or 12 minutes. So please, I said 5, now I'm changing. Only 3 people. 1, 2, 3, the last one. No. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 4, 5. Okay, please summarize. Please start.
Okay, thank you to give me the floor now. I am Dr. Manengs Patricia from Cameroon. I am international diplomatic specialist, and I really want
Please go straight to the question.
Yes.
Our time is very limited.
So I really want to share, my words go to the representative of Congo, which I share her tears because Cameroon is actually having the same situation since 7 years now, which are undergoing an Anglophone crisis. So my question is really, I'll go in French now, concernant vraiment l'insertion des jeunes filles victimes ressortissantes des conflits. Parce que je vais prendre l'exemple de mon pays, le Cameroun. Nous n'avons pas vraiment, le gouvernement n'a pas pensé réellement à l'insertion de ces jeunes filles. Lorsque je parle de l'insertion, je ne parle pas uniquement de l'insertion sociale, mais je parle aussi de l'insertion, que ce soit économique, politique, socio-culturelle et même académique. Mais nos gouvernements s'appuient beaucoup plus sur les aides au développement, les aides étrangères, et les organisations de la société civile font tant bien que mal soutenir ces jeunes filles-là. Mais nous n'avons pas vraiment de soutien.
Your question. Please,
yes.
Yeah, ask question, please. Like I said, I'm not a diplomat.
Yes,
Ask
the question is being asked. That I'm asking about the insertions of these girls, victims of conflicts. So, because these insertions of these girls are not really taken into considerations by the states, because the states, I'm talking about the example of Cameroon, because Cameroon has not had a budget to actually consider the insertion of these girls in our community. So how does Congo actually insert these girls in their communities? Thank you.
Thank you. Please, I'm insisting. Go straight to the question.
Thank you. My 2 questions are to the first. What successes do you have in terms of engaging governments when you talk of corruption, especially in incidences of emergencies and conflicts? And to the first presenter, how are we engaging and collaborating with armed forces and policing agencies in conflicts? Because sometimes they are also perpetrators of human rights violations during conflicts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, please. Yes. No, it was her. Yeah.
First. All right. Thank you. My name is Olivia Matamon. I'm a lawyer from Cameroon as well. I'm going to ask 2 questions. I'm going to be very snappy. The first presenter, my problem is with how do you deal with armed groups? Since we know international human rights conventions, duty bearers are states and not individuals or armed groups. The second question goes to the second presenter. I would like to know what mechanisms are being put in place, what enforcement mechanisms are being put in place for the enforcement of the Convention on Corruption that I must confess I'm hearing about it just today, and what implementation mechanisms or complaint mechanisms are in place under that convention. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Professor, talking about human trafficking, do you believe that the change in values also contributes to human trafficking, considering that overall people now think to have is actually to be. So if you have a good car, what, and that putting pressure on people to find money by whatever means. And also, what should the church then do in terms of values?
And the last one? Yes.
Ok, merci bien. Je partage d'abord les larmes de nos sœurs du Congo et du Cameroun et dire qu'effectivement, les conflits armés ont un impact réel sur les droits des femmes. Et la question que je veux poser, c'est savoir, est-ce qu'il existe, je sais qu'il existe, mais les mécanismes pour prévenir ce genre de dérive et quel est l'impact réel de ces mécanismes-là? Merci bien.
Thank you so much. And I think I said 5 people. I'm very sorry. The best part, we have other sessions. We'll ask those questions and all that. So please, my panelists, we'll start with Professor. If you have any question and even your concluding remark, 2 minutes, please.
Yes, I can conclude that that human trafficking is a still very hidden agenda, especially when it comes to our communities with regard to the telling the truth. So people are still suffering, and we are kind of not working straight forward for that issue of trafficking. So I call upon both of us, the government and faith-based organization, to really work collaboratively to make sure that this kind of dehumanizing act and killing act stop in our communities and in Africa especially. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Charity, if you have any feedback and your concluding remark.
Thank you very much. I think there was an aspect of enforcement mechanism under the African Union Convention. What we normally do is thank you very much. In terms of the enforcement mechanism, what we do is we normally do country assessments. Countries normally give us a baseline report on what they've done to implement the convention. And when we do a review mission, we try to see on ground how far they've implemented the various provisions. And then arising out of that, we do a report containing recommendations. And these reports are sent to the Executive Council of the African Union. And from there, once the Executive Council has adopted them, state parties to the convention are supposed to implement those recommendations. The only challenge at the moment is that the board is more of an advisory board. It doesn't have enforcement mechanisms. So we rely on the goodwill of the state parties to the convention to be able to implement the various recommendations. And in terms of what we've been able to do so far, we've done a number of review missions where we've assessed the fight against corruption in the state parties. And out of there, we come up with best practices, and that we hope other state parties to the convention can emulate to the extent possible, because we realize that they have different mechanisms, different setup of institutions fighting corruption in these different countries. So I think there's a lot that needs to be said, but in the interest of time, we can continue to engage. You have our details. Once I send the presentation, you have our details, and we're just here. For those of you that have time, you can pass by our office, and perhaps we discuss a bit in detail about this. And please, corruption is not for one institution. It's for every one of us, and it starts at an individual level. When you say no to corruption, you'll be able to withstand the pressures that come, and together we can win the scourge. We can win the fight against corruption. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Professor, I wanted to say something before I welcome But please, I have a minute.
Yeah, thank you. With regard to what I was asked on that issue of the feeling of those people who are really devoted women who are doing this women trafficking, it is something to do with the culture of taking care of the family, taking care of the people. So they do that kind of women do that kind of human trafficking in order to save or to help others in the community. But also in this bad belief, whereby with regard to belief, they think that if they are doing it to help others, regardless if they even if they suffer, they are helping others, and this is being accepted as a good act of love.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Natasha, you had a lot of questions, so I'm going to give you 4 minutes to answer the question because most of people are asking you those questions. So please summarize and then you give us your concluding remark.
Ok. Je réponds à la question de ma sœur camerounaise. L'insertion n'a jamais été facile parce qu'il y a plusieurs victimes qui n'aiment pas parler, qui ont peur du côté de la victime, il y a des victimes qui n'aiment pas parler, qui ont peur que leur bourreau puisse revenir. C'est comme ça que j'ai dit tout à l'heure que le président de la République a créé un fonds qu'on appelle FONAREV pour la réparation des victimes. Nous avons eu à faire des descentes il y a 2 mois passés. Nous sommes allés chercher les victimes, essayer de parler avec eux, demander aux victimes qu'est-ce que vous voulez pour qu'on puisse réparer, qu'est-ce que vous voulez pour qu'ils puissent avoir réparation. Certaines personnes refusent de parler et d'autres demandent, surtout les femmes, elles demandent qu'on puisse payer pour elles soit des métiers. D'autres demandent à ce qu'on puisse payer pour elles les avocats. D'ailleurs, avec ces fonds, les femmes ont maintenant le droit d'aller en justice gratuitement. Le président s'occupe des fonds pour la réparation. Donc voilà. Comment faire face aux troupes armées? Bon, pour là, on dira que c'est à chaque autorité de prendre soin de demander à ce troupe de se retirer parce que ils sont derrière des gens, ils sont commandités par certaines personnes. Tant que ces personnes-là n'ont pas dit cesser le feu, ils vont continuer. Alors la seule solution, parce qu'ils sont sous influence, la seule solution est comme mécanisme de prévention, on dira que la communauté internationale doit chercher à créer des dialogues entre les États, à créer des dialogues entre les gouvernements, les présidents, à chercher à faire des concessions, bien que ça n'a jamais été facile. Ça, c'est sûr.
Yeah, thank you so much. And please, let me take this opportunity to apologize. The pressure was real. So you just have to understand. And I was told we finish before 18:30. When you are here, my friends, not easy. Okay, say it.
Yeah, sorry. I just have one burning thing to say, and I'm really sorry for doing this. There's something that our sister said today, and I think we should acknowledge, because I just quickly looked it up, because I do know about this in history. Congo, DRC, under the rule of King Leopold, whoever he was, killed 10 million people. Let me repeat, 10 million. That causes intergenerational trauma So don't disconnect what is happening. We need, there's that word Sankofa. We need to go back in order to go forward. I think we need to acknowledge this in our pain and our suffering. It's not just about now. It's about what has happened to us. Are we dealing with those deep scars? I just leave it there.
Thank you. Just to summarize, in case you didn't pick anything from this meeting, I would wish for you to remember this. And she mentioned it at the beginning, that if a woman is at peace, then we are assured of development in our own countries. So if a woman is free from human trafficking, free from corruption, because that's when she's able to get access to, to health services, education, and everything. And because we all know that women are the ones who are doing a lot of hard work, yeah? So we are assured of what? Of getting development. But then I also want you to go home with a statement that I always put in most of my, as a hashtag, that says, but it's in Swahili, but I'll translate. It says, haki haina jinsia. That means justice has no gender. So whatever that we do, please remember that justice has no what? Gender. Once